Hi, my love. Welcome to the Gemma Hanley podcast. My name is Gemma. I'm your host. This is the space where I have honest conversations about overcoming anxiety and overwhelm so that you can calm your nervous system and feel really confident and happy and calm from within yourself. Along the way, I share my own stories of holistically healing 23 years of anxiety and depression myself. And so if you're a woman seeking answers to perfectionism, people-pleasing, burnout, resistance, you may love, you're in the right place. Let's do it. Let's begin. And before we begin, I want to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which I am recording from, which is the Gubbi Gubbi tribe. And I want to extend that acknowledgement to their elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as anybody of Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander heritage watching this replay. Welcome back, gorgeous, powerful, intelligent, capable, inspiring woman. I'm excited to bring you part 2 of pulling together a vision and goals for the year ahead 2024 that are deeply true and resonant to you. If you missed part 1, just go back. If you're listening to this on the podcast, go back an episode. And if you're in the mini course, the free mini course that I've put together, or if you want it, check the link in my bio or head to gemmahanley.com. You should be right on track because the videos and the teachings and the downloads are all in order there for you. Part 1 was guiding you through a review of your year. So if you're really interested in understanding your patterns of behavior, understanding why perhaps you don't yet have things that you've been efforting towards and that you really desire and you've been fucking trying, then that part 1 is going to be really, really, really rewarding and important for you to do before looking at what are the goals that I want to set for the year ahead. We're also actually in this conversation going to draw on the data you collected from that year in review to inform what would be the most meaningful, true to you goals and vision to set. So let us dive in. I'm going to share with you in this teaching lesson or podcast episode, the 6 key areas of life. If you're in the mini course, you'll also already be familiar with those because whilst I didn't mention them in the video or audio prior, they are in the downloadable workbook. So one of the reasons I love teaching through the 6 key areas of life that I've identified is that it's a really helpful prompt to make sure that we're spreading our time, energy, love, and attention, our focus across all the key pillars of life, and don't end up heavily invested or even feeling heavily successful in one area, only it doesn't really actually feel that rewarding because we've neglected other key areas of our life. So really helpful as a prompt, but also a measure of where we're sending our focus. So the 6 key areas of life: relationships. We're also looking, and when we talk about relationships, I also mean that through the lens of the relationship with yourself, not just with others. And this is also your relationship with whatever form of spirituality or energetic connection you resonate with, whether that is universe, source, spirit, God, life force, whatever that might be. Number 2 is our health and well-being. Number 3, play and lifestyle, so how you adventure. Number 4, money and wealth. Number 5, career, business, or maybe this looks like a contribution piece to you, whether that's through parenting or volunteering. And also number 6 is your personal purpose, which may be channeled and amplified through your career, business, or contribution, but is not specific to that thing. And I would also say that spirituality very much links into this here too, because we're talking about what's our personal purpose for existence. What are we here for? What feels like the highest, most important purpose for our time on earth? So they're the 6 key areas that we're going to dive into, and I'm going to guide you through. This conversation around setting your vision and goals is going to be more around, what do I want? What do I want to create? What do I want to be experiencing in the next year? At the end of next year, so this time next year, what do I want to be talking about and have as part of my reality and be celebrating? So a couple of ways we're going to do this. The first is we're going to start with getting really clear on what is the state of being, the overall state of being that you want to feel and experience in the year ahead. And you may have heard this before in terms of like a theme word or a focus word for your 2024. You can use that as well. I really like, though, words that describe who you will be being. So like with the prior episode where I shared a lot of my own personal examples, I've sat down and done this too. So the examples I bring you in this conversation will be where I'm at. Done it in a pretty brief way so far because it was for the purpose of being able to bring you examples on the potty. So these might shift and change when I sit down a second time before the new year, but here's where we're at right now. So some examples, and I did them across personal and business for my keywords. So I had 2 for each. Really though, like definitely no more than 4. And if you're just doing it for your personal life, if you don't run a business, 1 to 3 is plenty. It might feel like a great idea to have 5, so you're covering all bases, but if you can't stay connected and deeply embodied and implementing 5 different focuses, you're going to have less momentum in the year ahead than if you just picked 1 or 2. Yeah. So some examples, one of my keywords for next year that I can feel coming through is exposure. And we want to get really clear on what that means to us. Yeah. So the state of being that I want to feel is exposed, right? And part of what that means for me is traveling more, attending more events, meeting more people, more of a feeling of adventure and variety in my life. So exposure to new, exposure to invigoration, exposure to things that light me up inside. And what feels like for me for the year ahead is going to be, travel, events, people, places, all that goodness. Another example of a key word for me and state of being, and this actually spreads across and summarizes what I came up with for business anyway, so maybe I don't need those business words, is harmony or harmonious. Yeah. And what that means to me is I really want to feel a blend and more of a balance of the 6 key areas of life simultaneously. So already I'm able to share with you how we're linking the 2023 year in review questions and that data collection with the goal setting. Because one of the things that I shared that I wanted to let go of and not take into the new year for me is this singular focus, where I found when I reflected on 2023 that there was chunks of time, like months, that were really just heavy in business. And then there were months that were really heavy in play and adventure. And I want less of like in this and then out of that, because I'm going into this, and to have a blend of all of those things simultaneously. So that's what harmony means for me for the year ahead. So hit pause if you need to, download if you want to, and if you haven't already, download the workbook that comes with this teaching lesson, or just pull out your journal and leave it on your screen and just tune into and tap into what are 1 to 3 words that create an overall theme of how you want to feel and what you want to be experiencing in 2024. Once you've completed that, we're going to move on to step 2, which is, what do you want? And where we're going to begin is not with, okay, I want you to get pen and paper and write down the exact goal that you have right here, right now. instead, because that can feel a little bit overwhelming and stifling at times, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you some questions that will begin stimulating curiosity and creative thinking and pulling up some answers without the pressure of having to form them immediately into a beautifully curated goal. And so, again, in the workbook, you'll see these 5 questions. You don't necessarily need to answer all 5, but what you will find is if you move through them, it will invite any information from your heart and from your subconscious or from your intuition to surface, because probably the language of 1 or 2 of those questions will land with you more so than the others, right? So you're going to start with one key area of life and ask yourself these questions and just allow the answers to pour out onto paper, to write them down. Even if they feel a bit silly, even if they feel a bit scary, I'm going to invite you to allow that to come out of you and onto paper for you to explore. And when you finish the first key area of life, being relationships with others and yourself, you just repeat it for the second of health, and then the third, and then the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Yeah. So like in the 2023 review, you can take as little or as much time with each key area of life and each question as you wish. My invitation would be to spend at least 5 minutes on each key area of life, or you can just free flow it. Here are the questions that you can use and pick from. So the first is, what does my heart want? Yeah, so this helps us to come down from upstairs and come downstairs into the body, to remove any of these barriers of have to, should, must, black and white rules, maybe the standards or the expectations of people outside of yourself, and actually return to you. What is true in your heart for what you want? Another way we can ask ourselves these questions to stimulate answers from within is, this time next year, where do I want to be? Yeah. And I'm going to add a little piece to this that just dropped in, which is, if there was no risk of judgment or feeling ashamed or disappointing or letting other people down, this time next year, where would I want to be? Yeah. The third question you can ask yourself is, this time next year, what do I want to be thinking about? What do I want to be saying? What do I want to be speaking about, talking about? What are the words that I want to have coming out of my mouth? Yeah. So let me have a little look at some examples I could give you for this. So here's an easy example for me. So I would love to be saying, something I've loved this year is that I've spent time with my niece and my nephews every 3 months. Yeah, I haven't gone more than 3 months without connecting and spending really quality time with them, really great quality time with them. Yeah. So that's an example of what I might like to be saying. This time next year, what do I want to feel? Yeah. What do I want to feel? So if I take one of my money and wealth goals, that I've got written down here, which would be investing in shares monthly. So that might feel in my body like pride. It might feel like safety. It might feel like consistency, confidence, certainty in my ability to follow through, in my ability to prioritize something that's really important to me. So these are some of the things that I would be able to feel from actualizing that goal. Yeah. And the last question, this time next year, what do I want to have experienced? Right? So let me have a look at my lifestyle and play. So one of the things that I have written here is that I want to continue furnishing my home. Yeah. so that it's an expression of myself, so that it is a pleasurable place to spend time, so that it is like an exhale for my nervous system when I'm here, so that it feels pleasurable and enjoyable. And so something that I've got written down here is under lifestyle and play is I really want to continue furnishing my home. And then I've gotten really specific about the pieces that I want to move towards bringing into the home. So I was actually coaching the Reveal and Rise ladies. This might have been last week we had this conversation, and I shared how if I'm not seeing myself in the mirror, like full length in the mirror, and especially naked on a regular basis, I feel really disconnected from my body and from my soul. And this comment came off the back of spending a month in Melbourne, where my mum and my sister only have full-length mirrors in their bedrooms. And so if I wanted to look at myself in a full-length mirror, I needed to go into their bedrooms, right? And so I really felt the disconnect from that. Anyway, so one of the things that is listed in terms of continuing to furnish my home, I have that in my bedroom. I have a pretty great mirror in my bathroom, but I want something on the ground floor of my home. So in the lounge room, those of you who follow along on Instagram will see I dance a lot intuitively downstairs. So I'd love to have a leaner mirror there. I'd love to have a beautiful bed head in my bedroom as well. So these are some of the ways I'm getting like really clear and really specific on an experience I want to have in the category of lifestyle and play. I also want to travel overseas a minimum of 2 times next year, and I want both of those trips to have at least some allocation of work-free time. Yeah, so having an online business, part of what the vision was always for that and was included in my goals probably 5 years ago, if not more, was to have an online business so that I was location free and I could work from wherever I wanted. And that means that it's really pretty simple, and I've done this year, to travel overseas and continue running my business and be able to experience different things on my lunch breaks or after work or on the weekends. And going forward, I want to be able to include like a week on the end of a trip like that, or a few days on the end of a trip like that, or in the middle of a trip like that, so that there's also time completely off work as well. So that's something that I want to experience. So there's a few examples for you. Again, if you're playing along in real time, hit pause, reference the ebook, the PDF that has these questions in there, and just begin working through each of the 6 key areas of life. Use these prompts and full permission to just let whatever is there and alive for you come up and be written down on the piece of paper. Before you do that, one last thing I just want to invite and share here is that sometimes we can have this belief system that because we set a goal or because we write down an intention or a vision that we have for ourselves, that we are then locking ourselves into it, right? It's like this contract, or almost like this jail cell that we put ourselves in. And there's this idea that, well, if I say that's what I want, then that's what I have to do. And I can't change my mind because that would mean I'm irresponsible. That would mean I'm wrong. That would mean I'm not clear on who I am. That would mean I'm not able to follow through on things, right? When in actual fact, the truth and reality is that changing our minds and giving ourselves full permission to celebrate ourselves in that and seeing the brilliance and intelligence in that is one of the most powerful skills that we can have. And so a different perspective on this that is absolutely my belief is that when I set goals or when I set a vision, it's simply my best guess at what is most aligned, most true for me right here, right now. And then it's an adventure and an experiment and a data collecting mission as I move closer towards those goals or that vision, where I get to discover, is this still aligned, or am I actually learning things about what I thought I wanted that I didn't yet know? And actually, there's a more true to me version of this that's like an offshoot of the goal. So it's changing or tweaking a little bit. Or actually, I'm realizing this isn't for me, and here's the direction that I want to go in instead. Yeah. And so if I was to draw on my past, 3 or 2.5 years into a double degree of law and business, was able to admit to myself, finally, I knew this in the first year, but in 2.5 years' time, this is soul destroying for me. This is sucking the life out of me. This is not for me. Yeah. And so, in my brilliance of making that decision, I finished my 3rd year, completed with a single degree in business, majoring in law and marketing, and let the law degree go. Yeah. And was able to redirect myself to the thing that felt most attuned, most true to me instead. Yeah. And my career has been a continuous evolution of allowing myself to do that. That's just the space of career, but this could be playing out in any of the 6 key areas of life. Yeah. So when you set a goal and when you set a vision, that is your best guess at what is most aligned to you right now. And then you set out on an adventure, a data collection expedition that will either see you moving on track closer to that, continuously recommitting to that, or to something that you discover instead that lights you up even more inside. All right. So hit pause now if you're going to be moving through this in real time, and begin working through each of those 6 key areas of life. The third thing that we're going to do is we're going to take these notes or these bullet points that you've jotted down in step 2 of what do I want, and just start formulating and dragging them into some more clear and specific goals. Yeah. And one of the ways that we want to do that is make sure that the language that is being used is focused on what you do want. It's focused on your desires versus focusing on what you don't want or what you're wanting to let go of. Yeah. So an example might be, I don't want to feel anxious anymore, right? That's a focus on what you don't want and what you want to let go of. A focus on what you do want and what you desire would sound like, I want to feel really calm and peaceful within, and I want to feel really confident in my decision making and who I am as a person, and which environments and relationships feel deeply aligned and nourishing for me. Yeah. And so if you're challenged by this, I have this question for you to use. Yeah. If that's what I don't want, so if anxiety, insomnia, burnout, self-doubt, people-pleasing, perfectionism is what I don't want, what is it that I do want? ... And begin using that question to prompt your curiosity. So if that's what I don't want, what is it that I do want? And just have a best guess. Let yourself just have a go and see what comes up. So that's really what we want to do. And then if you want to take this a step further, something that I love doing is adding in a tangible measure. And what I mean by that is something that isn't just the felt experience, but that we'll be able to actually see and like report on or measure external as well. So I gave the example of traveling, and I said a minimum of 2 overseas trips, right? So that's very measurable, a minimum of 2. Let me see if there's something else in here so when I said I wanted to invest in shares monthly, it's measurable. Like, is it happening monthly or is it not? Something else that I put in here that I haven't shared is around health. So a goal that I have is that I am sensing a deeper level of healing and trust in my body that I'm being called forward into is to include cardio as a regular part of my training and just experiment with that and see how it feels. I don't enjoy it, but I can tell that a big part of me not enjoying that is that there's some fear around it. And I also know that I've never actually fully shown up to try it in a strategic, structured, ongoing way to then make a call or make an assessment about how I feel about that. I definitely haven't engaged anyone with expertise in that area to teach me certain things, right? And so it doesn't have to be a number like the other two things I've given you, but because I've referenced cardio, it's very clear and easy for me to see at the end of the year, well, did I show up to that fully and learn about it and try it on and experience it? Not just training, not just regular exercise, but cardio training being a part of that. Yeah. So there's some examples on that. So that's step 3 is we just want to clarify exactly what the goal is. We want to check that the language is focused on what you do want and it's desire focused. And ideally, we also want to have some tangible measures in there as well, so that when you get to this point of next year, it's really clear and easy and fair for you to review, okay, how did I go with that? And where did we get to? Cool. So that's number 3. Number 4, and this is a powerful question, one that can bring up some emotion, one that we also covered off on a little bit in the 2023 review. However, we'll probably hold even more clarity now that you've identified what would light you up inside, what are the goals and vision that you're going to be moving towards. Yeah. And it's this. What would I need to let go of to have more of what it is that I want, right? And this is another reason why I love the 6 key areas of life. Because when we're looking at all 6 areas of life simultaneously, we get to see the balance of, okay, is what I have set out in all these different areas, can it actually coexist? Is it humanly possible? Am I being realistic? Right? And so if we maybe have a vision of, I want to travel around Australia for 6 months, I want to work 3-day weeks, I also want to start a brand new business and I want it to grow to multi-6 figures. I also want to fall pregnant and have another child. Yeah. I also want to weight train 5 times a week, but we don't know if we're really going to be near a gym when we're traveling on the road for, I think you're beginning to see the picture of like this overlap, right? So we really need to look at, is there actually harmony and is there the ability for these goals that we're setting to really coexist? And they don't have to coexist at the exact same time, right? So in that instance, it could be, okay, for like the first 6 months of the year, I really want to travel and be on the road and adventure and not work as much. But then for the next 6 months of the year, it's going to be, I'm really going to hone in on business. And that's going to be the key focus, right? So it's not that they have to be happening simultaneous, but there does have to be enough space in the calendar year for this to be realistic. Because when we're unrealistic, we're setting ourselves up to feel defeated, to feel overwhelmed, and to feel like we're not getting anywhere fast and we're always chasing our tail. And so I love this quote that goes, you can have anything, but you can't have everything. And I like to add this little bit on the end, all at once. Yeah. And life's going to be giving you feedback, right? So if you look at what was achievable in 2023 versus what you perhaps planned to achieve, that might be a great feedback system for you of where you're at in terms of optimism or playing safe, right? Are you so optimistic that you set probably 2 years worth of goals in the last year? And that's really the only reason that you haven't been able to put a tick beside all of them when you did your review. Or are you playing it so safe that there's not really anything on your vision or in your goals that feels like a stretch or feels like an edge for you? And we want to find that sweet spot in between so that you're setting yourself up for confidence. You're setting yourself up for something that is humanly possible and achievable. So checking in on that as well. And of course, as you move through that, write down, like quite literally write down, well, what is it then that I need to let go of or compromise on? And if you've been in my world for a while, you will have heard me use the language of aligned compromises. And I think I probably shared this actually on the last podcast episode too, of where, there's been multiple times in the last 10 years of my life where I've moved back in with my parents. So that happened. I moved back in with my dad, and then I moved back in with my mum and her partner when I was experiencing chronic illness. Yeah. And I really was too isolated and too lonely, but also struggling physically with the basics of cooking meals and doing washing and getting out of the house to socialize when I was recovering from chronic fatigue and anxiety and depression. And so whilst my ideal was to be able to maintain my independent lifestyle, I could see that in order to meet my needs in other areas, this aligned compromise for the short term, for a season only, not forever, needed to be made. Moved out, living life, starting a business, and at that point in time, paying rent at a clinic, and realized, okay, I can use my savings to pay rent for my home and pay rent for my clinic and to invest in the startup costs of a business. Or I can reserve some of those savings. And again, I can take this opportunity to move in with family, not forever, not for a super, super long time, but make the aligned compromise to do that for a shorter period of time. And then last year, living in the city with my dad because I didn't know where I wanted to live, versus making an immediate gratification, quick fix decision that would have me living out of the city, but maybe wouldn't have been right. And I would have needed to pack up and move again. And that would have felt really frustrating and compromised my focus and my ability to give time, energy, love, and attention to other goals. So yes, what are you letting go of, but also what are the aligned compromises you might need to make in the short term? And then the last piece to this, my love, is it's really, really, really helpful for you to create a hierarchy of what are the top, definitely what's the top number one goal or focus that you want to bring into your vision and create as part of your reality so that this time next year, it is there. It is rock solid. It is your experience. It's happening for you. Yeah. And you might like to identify what the second and third are as well. This can challenge a lot of women because what comes up is, oh, but like I want it all and I need it all. And like all of it is super important to me, which is true. And the charge behind it or the pressure behind it is often comes from a place of, I'm not good enough as I am. I'm not successful enough until I have achieved these things. And so I really just need to get them happening really fast. And it's also going to be the quickest way to regulate my nervous system, right? I was on another coaching call with clients inside my short course program, responding to overwhelm last week. And we were having this conversation. One of the women was sharing how she currently lives in share house accommodation and living, and she's really just craving, but also feeling the need from just like a safety perspective and a relaxation and regulation perspective to live in her own home and not have housemates anymore. And one of the conversations that we had is that getting to the, like, if she had that immediately today, it's really unlikely and definitely not guaranteed that that would equate and equal a regulated nervous system and a feeling of safety and relaxation, right? And you might have heard this through the lens or from the perspective of like, if there's not happiness in the journey, there's also not going to be happiness in the destination. And actually, whatever is coming up in the nervous system, whatever subconscious pattern is playing out that's creating that stressed, dysregulated, anxious, overwhelmed state is also the thing that needs to be looked at before we will have the nervous system capacity, the neurology, and the energetic emotional alignment to make that a reality for ourselves. Yeah. And so, whatever hurdles feel like or blockages feel like they're in between you and the goal that you want or getting to what you want, they are there to expand you. Yeah. They're not wrong. They're not by mistake. And they're not something that is too hard and makes it impossible and shouldn't be there. They are actually the lesson that, when lent into, make the goal possible, make the goal available, right? And so a few podcast episodes back, I recorded one and it was called The Biggest Mindset Hurdle All Women Face Into. And I speak into this in that podcast episode. So if what I'm sharing with you right now is landing or even feeling maybe a bit triggering or annoying or inconvenient, or the sound might be like, oh, that might be a good resource for you, that extra podcast episode as well. And ultimately, what we identified and what this woman was able to learn through the coaching session was actually it's what her nervous system is showing her is that she's believing she's not capable and she's believing she's not trustworthy to be able to respond to and work with the environments that she's in right now. Yeah. And that she has to be removed from certain environments before she can cultivate safety for herself. And so that then became a piece of clarity to her instead of this, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm going to be so anxious and so overwhelmed until the day comes that I can move into a home that is only mine and I don't have housemates, right? All of a sudden, the pattern and the piece that opened up for her to look at and heal and work with gave her something to focus on that is actually going to enable the end goal to become her reality. So that's another important piece. And also why we can feel the pressure sometimes of it's not okay for me to just focus on one thing to begin with and then add more in, right? Because it's this nervous system response of I'm not safe, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I'm not successful until these boxes are ticked. So let's fucking get onto it and go, right? And this can bring out our masculine energy in a really dominant way too. And we can have this expression or this energetic that is felt by others of rigidity, bluntness, aggression, and even, and this was true for me in the past, a girlfriend and I were actually speaking about this on my couch yesterday, of how people used to perceive me as a bitch. And then they'd get to know me and they would reflect, they were like, oh my gosh, when I first met you, I thought you were like such a bitch and like so harsh. And actually, you've just got the softest heart, right? But because my nervous system was so stimulated and overactive, and I was just so gung-ho and focused on like these things have to happen, and there's no version of success or being loved or getting anything that I want unless I'm like 100% power driven in that direction of moving the needle forward on those things in every moment possible. And so if this is you, an invitation to relax into trusting yourself in the process, allowing yourself to be the learner and the beginner, creating space for not just doing and go, 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 but also the being that allows us to tap into our feminine nature, which is connection to the wisdom of our intuition, the expression of our emotions, the flow of creativity through us. Deep, deep nurturing and loving, fiercely loving, another podcast I recently recorded, fiercely loving yourself, so that you are returning to more of that masculine doer energy, yeah, of ambition, and beautiful vision for your life in the most regulated and therefore productive, intelligent, most efficient way possible. Yeah. So an invitation to identify the hierarchy. What is the number one thing that at the end of next year, you want to be able to say, this is just what I do now. This is just my thing. And from that, I'm going to invite you to also identify what are 5 mini steps, what are 5 mini action points that you can identify to move you toward that. And when I talk about mini steps, we practice this every week inside Reveal and Rise as well. I bring the women back down into their bodies, into the now, and I ask them, what are your 3 mini goals, mini focuses, just for the next 7 days? We are so good at looking 6 months, 12 months, 3 years ahead of what it has to look like, what it must look like, what should be happening. And if in the everyday we are just consistently looking and referencing that of the future, we are going to have the experience of still not there yet, still not happening yet, got to keep hustling. Oh my gosh, why isn't it here yet? What's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? What am I missing? What else do I need that's outside of me because I'm not good enough? Right? When in actual fact, yes, know what the vision is, know what the goal is, and then we need the skill set of being able to anchor in the day-to-day and just this week of what is the mini goal that little by little moves us in the direction, moves the needle forward toward that greater vision. One of my favorite quotes is a Tanzanian proverb that I heard years and years and years and years ago when I was in recovery. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. And if we don't let ourselves identify, access, implement the little bits, my love, I can guarantee you it's not possible to have the lot or create the lot. Yeah. All right, beautiful. Leaving this conversation here. I'm really excited for how all this comes together for you, how it all feels for you. Feel free to reach out in my DMs on Instagram and maybe share what that number one priority and goal is. I'd love to celebrate you in that. And if a question pops up as you're moving through this and you'd love some support or some feedback, send me a short specific question in the DMs on Instagram too, and I'll come back to you. I'm going to be offline for the end of December and into the start of January. But once I'm back, I will be in touch. Big love, beautiful woman. Thank you for being here for this conversation, my love. If you would like more free resources, if you'd like to learn about my programs or coaching opportunities, you can find all of that information at my website, gemmahanley.com. I'll link it below in the show notes. And if you would like to connect daily, head over and find me on Instagram. My handle there is Gemma E. Hanley, and I reply to all of my DMs there personally. If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, please share it with someone. You never know who needs to hear one little thing to take their day from feeling stuck and heavy to light and free. See you on the next one.